to see who else is going to join us. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but for me, it feels like it's been a long week. I feel like it's been a long week since last Sunday, and we were all together. And I'm not too sure why it has been such a long week. It could be that there's just been so much happening or going on, which makes a change. Certainly for me, there's a lot of things that are requiring attention and focus, and I'm having to be present. So that's a good thing. But I'm still excited about the energies and where we are right now with regards to that, as things are definitely continuing to lighten up, which is good. Lisa's also said she feels like it's been a slow week, which she liked. Yeah, it makes a change to have a slow week, to take time. Yeah, it's good. It makes a change from what we have been experiencing. So as we move, what I was shown today is that as we move deeper and deeper into this month, there's definitely the energies are continuing to lighten up, which is really positive, and I'm really excited about that, because for so long they seem to have just been so heavy and quite difficult to manage or navigate. And also what's quite exciting is that there is a greater sense of motivation and focus. And Sarah's just said it feels like a week where I have gotten more clarity, which has been lovely. Yeah. So there's definitely seems to be a feeling of being able to get to the things that we want to get to. Whereas before, I think there's been so much exhaustion and feelings of apathy and not really wanting to do anything, that we haven't been able to do the things that we want to get excited about. So for me, there's a lot of exciting energy in what we're stepping into. However, we're still also discovering what is out of balance and what needs rebalancing. So those things that are out of balance, both in ourselves, in our lives, and in our world, as well as what needs rebalancing within us. So these imbalances are becoming more and more apparent. And the question I asked with that is, you know, why are they becoming so obvious? Whereas, you know, they're things that we've lived with without question, many of us for our whole lives, and now all of a sudden there is this, I don't know, it feels like these veils are being ripped away and the illusions are falling, and these ideas of what we thought we were going to be doing, or we thought, or even who we thought we were, and who we thought people were, and relationships, all of that is shifting and changing. And what I was shown is that as our energy expands, as we integrate more and more of our soul energy in our physical form, we start to see with our soul eyes rather than our human eyes. So the difference is that the human eyes are the eyes that are seen through the lens of pain, of trauma, of suffering, and the beliefs that we have bought into. Whereas our soul eyes have a greater perspective and the ability to see a greater, or understand a greater, that there is a greater meaning and a greater purpose to everything that we've been through. So the human eyes within us want to react to situations, want to react to circumstances, want to react to people, want to react to the trauma and the pain that still sits within us. Whereas from a soul perspective, we understand that the pain, the trauma, the suffering, everything that we have been through has purpose. And that purpose is the healing, the growth, and the evolution of our soul. So we're really moving into the space of being able to see with those soul eyes. And as a result of that, we're seeing things far more clearly. We're seeing ourselves far more clearly. And we're able to make choices and decisions that are more in alignment with that soul perspective versus the human part of us that wants it to be quick and easy. Whereas the soul part of us knows that it is a journey and a discovery and an uncovering rather than a McDonald's Happy Meal. So, and I don't eat McDonald's ever. Elise has also said here, clarity that has been about not wanting to get roped into others' chaos and life journey, allowing to have their own experience. And I think that's also part of the soul eyes, is that we understand that everyone has their own journey, everyone has their own experiences that they need to go through. And this idea that we have the authority to tell someone else what is best for them is ludicrous, actually, because how do we know that? Only the individual person knows what is best for their journey. So we can look at what someone else is doing and how they are living their lives with judgment and with criticism, because what we see is in our eyes or from our perspective a mistake, but from their perspective it's not. From their perspective of the soul, it is the journey that they need to take and the path that they need to step onto. So there is a feeling of the more we embody that soul aspect of ourselves, the more we view ourselves, our life, and the world around us with our soul eyes, the greater acceptance there is within us around our own journey and our own path moving forward. And we leave everyone to their own journey and their own path, recognizing that the only thing that we need to focus on is ourselves. And when we do that, I think I've had conversations with people this week around this whole concept as well, because many of us have struggled to find the joy in our day-to-day lives because things have been tough. There have been situations and experiences that we've had, certainly in the last year, that have been difficult to manage, have been difficult to face. And as a result of that, it's been very difficult to find the lightness and the joy and the excitement. And in fact, I said to someone this week, life at times feels incredibly boring, because it is a bit like, Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every day. There doesn't seem to be much shifting, much changing. We're just listening to more information around this virus and lockdowns and third waves and whether we're going to be allowed to travel and whether we're going to be allowed to do all of this. And it's becoming incredibly boring and limiting us in so many ways. And yet, if we can tap into that soul aspect of ourselves, that's where we tap into the joy, that's where we tap into the feelings of excitement, because there we can tap into the creativity that aspect of us holds. And so we can start to envision our life being different and how that difference is going to look or play out in the world. And I'm certainly someone who thrives on creativity. I need to be creative. I need to be creating new things, which I do all the time. And if I can't do that in my work, then I'm redecorating my house or doing a painting or doing something that is creative. And the minute I'm feeling stuck and kind of bogged down by all this stuff that's going, this boring stuff that's going on in the external world. I just need to tap into that creative aspect of myself, and I start to shift out of that space of feeling bored. And I start to see the potential and the possibilities that are available to us in the future. And that future can be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be in months or years. It can be tomorrow. Things can change that quickly and that dramatically. And one of the things that I was seeing in the energy at the moment is this feeling of being stuck. There are certain people that are really feeling stuck in the past and not knowing how to step out of that and how to initiate the flow and the movement of energy again within themselves and in their lives. And as a result of that, are searching outside of themselves for answers, for clarity, for direction. And if they are stepping into the wrong space in order to find that clarity, they're going to be taken on a wild goose chase, quite frankly. And you know, in answer to my question, when I was looking at everything, is how do we step into that flow? How do we create the movement in ourselves and in our lives again? And the simplest answer I got was with an open heart. So if we are feeling stuck, that's the space that we need to move into, because it means on some level we have shut down that heart center. We've shut down access to our soul energy. So the minute we work with that heart center and we open into that space, the movement and the flow begins again. So I mean, it's pretty simple, and yet we probably like to think that it should be more complicated. And I was watching, I've mentioned Alberto Villoldo before, and he launched some free videos this week again. And I watched the first one, and the first one was all about how to put yourself into flow, into the flow of life. And it was such an incredibly simple exercise of just breathing. I mean, it's a specific breathing. As you breathe in and hold, you breathe out and hold. You breathe in and hold, you breathe out and hold. And that hold can just be a moment. And I remember when I was doing the shamanic training that I went through, I was shown that the breathing, that kind of breathing, initiates within us space for that creative energy to start bubbling up within us. And it's the space of the void. So when we breathe out and we hold, we're igniting within us that space of the void. We're igniting within us that space of pure potential. And so when we breathe in, we are breathing prana, we're breathing life force into that space so that something can emerge out of it. So if we can learn to do that in a very conscious way, just through that breathing of recognizing that space that we are opening within ourselves, that void space, we can consciously start bringing something into form and into manifestation. And I've always been fascinated with this idea of manifestation, because there's so many, sorry about that, that's my daughter requesting an app. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, manifestation. There's so many different ideas around how to manifest, and some of you who've worked with me and done courses know my opinions on a lot of them. And I've been shown different techniques over the years, having met different people, they've shown me different techniques. And what I realized when I was watching this video with Alberto is how simple manifestation can be, and how if we consciously work with that breathing exercise in our minds, or holding within our awareness an idea of what it is that we want to manifest. If we can consciously breathe that we can actually start to manifest energetically in that way. So I'm certainly going to be trying that one, and seeing how it works. But I have been focusing on my breath a lot more this week as a result of watching that video, and definitely feeling a lot calmer and a lot more peaceful as I've moved through the week. Elizabeth Rose has just said, I found it a huge week for physical purging. We really got our money's worth of Mars last week in Taurus through our bodies. Yeah. Yes, I also yeah, I had a couple of days where, yeah, it's still there. It feels like there's I suppose it would be my lymph system is really struggling. And I don't normally, I don't take in a lot of toxins. I don't drink alcohol, and I eat pretty clean. And I must say, I have felt very toxic. But I've got this very exciting new thing, which is called a biofeedback device thing, and I've been practicing and putting myself on it and doing lots of clearing on that level. So it evidently has helped. Elizabeth Rosa says she's also got sciatica down both legs for 10 days. Yeah, no sleep. Yeah, me too. I've also got the sciatica. Thankfully, it's only down one leg. And yeah, but it's what I noticed, because there are a couple of people I'm working with at the moment who've got sciatica, and what I've seen working on them energetically is that there's movement around the base, and that movement in the base area is causing the body to go into a little bit of panic and go, tighten around that area to protect it. But actually, we just need to maybe breathe into it and feel into it. No sleep. Yeah. I've had liver. Also, people I've worked with this week, it's been liver and gallbladder and pancreas. Those three organs are the ones that are taking the most strain. Oh, Natasha's also having sciatica. Nancy, disc went out in my lower back, and I've been nearly immobilized for a few days. Hasn't been this bad in years. Locked and stocked. Oh, another one. Elise has also got sciatica down one leg. Oh, yeah. I think it's the other night I actually did have a really good night's sleep, and I still woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a bus. So there's a lot of movement. And then there was Wednesday or Thursday, there were those massive earthquakes that were happening in New Zealand. That'll definitely create an impact. Lorraine's also got sciatica. Elise says it's always my right side that things happen. Yeah, me too. Fiona, thank goodness. You've just been packing all weekend. Tired body, good. Focus on the packing. Lorraine's also on the right side. Interesting. It could be. So when I work with energy flow in the body, the energy comes in through the crown and moves down the right side into the earth, and then back up from the earth into the left foot and up the left side and out. So there's this movement of energy down the right and up the left. So there's definitely new energy coming in, and maybe that's why the body is struggling, because if it's the right side, it's hitting that base chakra, and all of us are going, no, what is this? What's happening? And also, I also think that there's a lot of us hold, whether it's this lifetime or previous lifetimes, trauma around dramatic changes. And there is this kind of belief pattern and programming around the end of the world. and the fear that that can trigger on an unconscious level, and that can certainly lock that base in and block the energy from moving through us. So because it's so prevalent with all of us, I think we definitely need to start focusing on how do we move it beyond the base and beyond the hips and get it out of the feet. Yeah, I'm hoping there's going to be some more answers coming around that. I mean, the base is also, it's the foundation. So our foundations are changing, our structures are changing, the structures in the world and the structures within us as well. So it makes sense that we'd go into a little bit of panic around that. Jennifer says she's had sciatica in the past, but no sciatica now. Fingers crossed it stays that way.
Kate, I was shown yesterday a new base.
Wow.
And it's a triangle, of course. And one part of the base is transformation. The other is transmutation. And very much in line with what you were saying, the top is creativity.
Yeah. So transformation, transmutation, and creativity.
We're working from that new base.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the triangle is pointing up, or is it a flat disc that sits in the base? Were you seeing that? I was shown this way. Because
then I also saw that now. And I think that the transformation is on the right, the transmutation is on the left, and the creativity is moving up. So maybe those of us who are struggling on the right, it's about transformation. Those on the left, it's about transmutation. Yeah, sadly. So we've got to look at what are we struggling with regards to the transformation or the transmutation. Anita's also said she's got stuff going on in her right shoulder and things that occurred a while ago, revisiting a bit.
Kate, sorry, I was. What's the difference between transmutation and transformation? Just so I'm clear.
So transformation, for me, means like the most simplest thing I can think of is water. Water can be transformed into ice, or it can be transformed into steam. Transmutation means that it is, well, what would be a good word to explain it?
Alchemy.
Yeah.
Something becomes something else.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's a dissolving. I guess the word dissolving comes to mind.
Yeah. It's really just saying, instead of just changing exactly what you are into a different form, it's becoming something completely different.
Yes.
Okay.
And also with transmutation, it is that dissolving. So it's almost that whatever it is does no longer exists. Whereas with transformation, it still exists, but it's just in a different form.
I think that the importance of the transmutation part is if there are things that that we need to let go of. You know, if you find that something's been transmuted and you go into a bit of panic and you say, oh, where is that? That could be something to pay attention to, maybe.
Well, I think it's we've all been going through a massive shift and change and transformation. It's been going, it seems to have been going on forever. But it's been really intense. And I think what we often forget, because as humans we can become incredibly self-absorbed, is that we are not just doing this for ourselves, this transformational process that we're in, we're doing it for the collective too. And so whether we're conscious of that or not, it is happening. And I know for myself that there have been physical experiences that I've had that have not necessarily even been my own. They've been an experience that I've had to go through in order to shift something for the collective. And for those of you that work as healers or therapists or practitioners of any kind, you guys generally are the ones who are going to be doing that for the collective. Not to say that those who don't do that work aren't, but it's generally so. So it might also be that what is needing to be transformed or transmuted is necessarily your own stuff. It could be environmental, as in your environment, in the space, the area that you live, the people that are around you. There could be something that you are shifting, changing, or transforming, or transmuting there too.
Kate. And I was just thinking also another good way of thinking of it, the difference between transformation and transmutation, the way water, in a way, transmutation for me, I associate far more with fire. So it's for me, transmutation it feels like a quicker process. It feels like fire coming in and just clearing everything that needs to be clear. Whereas transformation to me often feels like a slower, more gradual process. It doesn't have to, but it tends to be a slower thing. And the transmutation it's like just completely kind of the fire coming in and just clearing out what needs to be cleared. I don't know. That's just how I experience it. But yeah. And that is very much an association also though with the medicine wheel, I think, in my, you know what I mean, the element of fire and the element of water.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's the multidimensional aspect, moving in and out. And so it gets easier and easier, but I find, I think you kind of get, as you're shifting dimensions and we're back and forth and we're having to engage more 3D and then shift, I find I get caught, with that transition physically. So maybe this has been a fantastic discussion because I think it brought some things to light. But I think for me, that's probably a lot of what it is. It's just trying to shift back and forth, and you are doing a lot of work for the collective. I do a lot of light work just in general, just because I feel like a calling to do that, to help people shift, and just in general, people I don't know. So I think that's probably for me what it is. But it definitely, I have some times when I'm not taking care of myself enough that it does really get to me. I can really feel in my body, and it hits on that right side. So this makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that it's a signal for you about the need for more self-care, which I think is also something that I certainly have struggled with in the past. At least there's been feeling like I'm in another dimension, dreamlike. Yeah, there are some dreamy spaces at the moment. not unpleasant. Especially when she's when outside. Yeah, this week I must say I have made a real effort to get outside. Yeah, and Lorraine's also said in and out of those dreamy dimensions. Yeah, they're quite nice, quite a good space to be in. Okay. But Lorena, also I like that idea of the physical discomfort being a sign of more self-care. I'm definitely going to be sitting with that one and looking at where that is needed in for myself.
Okay, can I pop off a little bit off topic and ask Nancy how she's dealing with her lower back injury with your lockdown and being locked up over there?
You know, when I say I have been in agony, like nothing, I could barely, it hurt to breathe. And I've had this since it's just a disc that just goes slightly out of place. And I've had it since I was like 21, but it's been years. So I'm thinking about what everybody's saying and thinking, you're right. I've been done almost nothing for a year. It'll be a year on the 17th that we've been locked down in my house pretty much. I'm looking forward to spring, but I think, Lorraine, you make a good point. I've spent the last few days going, I really need to take better care of myself. It's easy to just get, I go from the one room to the other. I live in less than 1,000 square feet. So, but oh God, it's really been whatever. And also this week, because I've told the group so much about it, my cousin who had the stroke was taken to the hospital. I told you, and when she got to the hospital, apparently they realized she was horribly neglected where she was. And of course, because family can't go in and see her because of lockdown, nobody knew it. And I mean, bad enough that the hospital is going to file a suit against the other hospital, which doesn't happen very often. But she, on the upside, she is now in a really nice place that has really good ratings for care. I think she's going to end up staying there which is not the happy news, but at least she'll be in better care. But I got to tell you, it's horrifying that people who are charged with the care of people who can't take care of themselves, it's like people who abuse animals, and that comes off wrong, but I adore animals. So, if you abuse an animal, I think execution is the answer. But, but to not, she had bed sores and infection, and apparently she was literally neglected. And so, but anyway, hopefully soon things will get better. I had my first vaccine, and in another 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I get my second. Maybe they'll let me in to see her after that. Excuse me. So anyway, but yeah, no, I'm thinking about the base thing too, Jen, because it is literally a disc in the very bottom of my back. And I was thinking it might have to do with bringing up old stuff, like we keep talking about in this group, that old stuff has to come up, because this is a really old injury from, like I said, age 21. And for me, that was a really long time ago. But anyway, so it's just been a really hard week. And I can move a little better. If you notice, every time I move in my chair, I wince a little bit. At least I can get up. There were points where I just would sit there and go, I need to go into the bathroom, but I can't get out of this chair. And when you live alone, it's kind of scary, you know? So anyway, good to see everybody. I looked forward to the meeting all week.
I was going to say, I had a slip disc, and until you've actually had one, you cannot explain to anybody the pain or the inability to move. And just even thinking about moving is enough to make you just freeze. It's the most hideous situation to be in. So I just ended up taking a lot of painkillers and relaxants, because then at least it allowed you to move. Whereas if you don't take anything, well, I know some people don't agree with it, but you don't move because you're just in so much pain thinking about it. But I was just going to add, sorry I joined late, but my sister, big sister, actually has just been taken into hospital with a stroke. They think suspected stroke, but she's mentally ill. And the problem is, when you talk about neglect, she has carers that come in and a crisis team, but they can only come in 5 days a week. They don't cover weekends. So luckily my twin's just gone down there and found her literally curled up in her bed, because she's on so much medication. She's so confused. I don't know if the strokes got her so confused she's taken the wrong medication, or we don't quite know what's going wrong at the moment. So I'm just a bit thrown by it. But I think hopefully it's just because she's been confused, she's taken the wrong medication and she's okay. But they're doing scans on her now. But it's awful because she lives on her own. She's mentally ill. She's struggling to stay at home and stay out of hospital. But it's trying to get the care system, you know, they mean well, but it just takes one person to fall down. And if she had the stroke yesterday and no one's detected it until, thank God my sister went down just because she sounded so confused. But I don't know, Kate, maybe you'll pick up on something, but it's just worrying because she's unable to look after herself. And if she now has this added complication, it's, you know, she's 63, she's not old. But, you know, there's a lot of her life to be lived if she's going to have issues, and we're all remote. And with COVID, it's just particularly hard. So, sorry, I just digressed, but it's on my mind. So, hideous for her.
Fiona, just let everyone know what her name is so that
Penelope.
No, that is hard. I'm sorry.
What's awful is we can't do anything because, you know, this stupid COVID situation, and it makes everybody so isolated. Anyway, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and at a time where we don't need to be isolated, actually, because life is difficult and challenging enough as it is. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be keeping her and you all in my prayers. So.
It's so hard, Fiona, when you can't do anything. I mean, you literally, you know, I mean, my cousin's only a few miles away. It's been since Thanksgiving, and there's nothing. I mean, I can pray, I can, you know, offer to help her siblings, but, you know, it's so hard. I'm really, really sorry about your sister.
I think, you know, for me, it just highlights, both of you have just highlighted some of the systems that need to change in the world. You know, that we become so disconnected that people who are ill are not being cared for properly. Whether they're physically ill or mentally ill is immaterial, because these are the consequences. And they're unnecessary, in my opinion.
But I was going to say, I mean, Kate, you know, with mental illness, you know, sadly to your, you know, great loss, unless you are watching somebody 24/7, you can't control it. It's completely out of your hands. All you can do is try and have a network there, but it's like a small child, you know, basically asking it to play in the middle of a road. It's pot luck whether you just are there that moment or not. And And I think that's what I find hard, is you want to be able to do so much, and short of, you know, living with her by her side, there's nothing you can do.
And
I too have a brother who's mentally ill, and he lives on the other side of the country in California, and lives on his own. He does have kids out there, but they're literally, it's very, you feel very helpless.
I think also this is where, you know, it's not so much that the systems like the healthcare system need to change, but it's us as a human collective that needs to change, because what is needed in these situations is community.
Well, this was actually part of the frustration. Thank God my sister going in, because she was so unconscious, really, that she was able to call an ambulance, because then it was considered a medical emergency rather than a health emergency. So that's the only reason she's got into hospital now, because we had to make it medical. But if we'd mentioned anything about her health problem, they would have ignored it. So it's so extraordinary, and they're not combined. It's this sort of disjointed system that doesn't work together. It's just daft. That has to change. Somehow it has to change.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I was pretty horrified at the mental health system in the UK. The experience that I had with my brother, and meeting. I had a meeting when I was there with the woman who had managed my brother's care from the mental health department, and she was horrific. You know, the things that she'd done, and how she had played into his psychosis was incredibly disturbing. Yeah. So
And I
yeah,
think worse right now, by the fact that everywhere people have been in lockdown for such a long time, and they say it has exacerbated mental health issues to a frightening point everywhere. You know, and so I think maybe it's being highlighted more than ever, and especially in young people. They say, you know, young people, and I was just having this conversation with a friend who, you know, these kids have been in lockdown for a year away from their friends, and I look back and can't imagine. I mean, you know, especially kids who don't necessarily even have siblings, you know, it's a hard time.
And Natasha's also made that her aunt died this week because of COVID, and she had to be buried with 12 hours. I don't live back at home, so it was a logistical nightmare, and still I couldn't be there. This makes everything so much harder for all of us. I'm worried about that, Natasha. 12 hours, that's ridiculous. Sandra said everything has been so institutionalized. You're so right. We need to go back to being more community focused. Yeah, it was something that. Yes, Lorraine?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll go after you.
I was just going to say, with regarding community, I was really humbled many years ago when I was invited to go and do some work in one of the townships that. And in South Africa, we have these townships, and I suppose you would call them shanty towns, where you live, where people live incredibly close together in shacks. And there's very little electricity or water or sanitation. And, you know, from our perspective, from the outside looking in, you'd wonder why anyone would choose to live there. And obviously poverty plays a huge part in it, but I was invited to go and work in one of these townships, and to do some counseling and some therapy, and And so I went in twice, and afterwards said to them, these people don't need me. Because what was so amazing is the support that they had from each other, from a community perspective. And even in that level of poverty, the community looks after each other. They didn't need me. I was just a novelty for a little bit, but they did not need me. And what was fascinating is how they looked at how we lived in our lives, you know, in these big houses, these standalone properties with big gardens and walls, and they couldn't understand why we would want to isolate ourselves from our neighbors and from our friends and from our family, and why we wouldn't want to live with them. Yeah, Natasha.
I don't often contribute because I feel that I'm such a newcomer to this group, but because you're talking about the townships, I'd love to tell you a really, really tiny story. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a television producer and a reporter, and I had a girlfriend from ballet school who used to work in Kailicha. And so I organised a programme for CNN in the townships, and it was a miserably hot day, and I'd sent money down for their costumes, and the kids had spent months practicing this fantastic routine. And I got Cape City Ballet to go into Kailicha. When we went in the van, we were pelted with rocks and stones. Nobody wanted us there. And looking after the crew, I'd taken sweets and water and all that kind of thing. And the kids showed us their homes, which were literally made out of bits of cardboard. And we were filming in one of them, and one of the kids said, would it be okay if we kept this bottle of water? And I said, I felt so embarrassed that we had had so much and we seemed so affluent, and we'd gone in with all this stuff. And I said, of course. And he said, you know, I don't want to keep the bottle of water because it's got water in it. He said, I want to keep this bottle of water because I want to remember forever the day that you came to visit us. And we drove back in silence. All my 6'7" cameramen and sound crew, we were all gutted, but it was just one of the most moving experiences of my life. I'm so glad I did it. And of course, we raised huge amounts of money for Kailicha, and the work continues. And aren't I lucky that I get to do that stuff?
Well done. That's amazing. You know, it's incredibly humbling, and going into those spaces certainly reminds me of what we don't have.
Kate, on that note, did you manage to get the bicycles for your guys?
I'm getting them this week. So thank you thank you, Fiona, for reminding me. I've been meaning to thank everyone for the donations. I've got enough money to buy them bicycles, which I'm going to hopefully do this week. Their colors are bright pink, so I'm hoping to get. I can't find bright pink bicycles, but I'm going to hopefully get some paint and have them spray painted, and so they'll be branded for them. Yeah, so I'll definitely be sending out an email with pictures and everything when I give them to them. Yeah, but yeah, they're just one example, I think, of so many amazing things that are happening in those townships. Yeah, and it's a reminder to us, and you know, just what's happened now with Fiona, with your sister, and Nancy, what's happened with your cousin. I mean, these are just reminders of how important community is and how we've lost that. I mean, we here creating this beautiful space in this community, but we're all scattered around the globe. You know, and I mean, Nancy, I wish I could come over and help you, make you a cup of tea, give you a foot rub, and hopefully help you back. you know, those are the kind of things that we need to be able to do for each other. And maybe, you know, certainly one of the things with all this isolation that we've been in is certainly reminding us of how important connection is and how important people are in our lives. So talking about imbalances.
Oh, and just add to that, I've been thinking about. I've been working on my book. Yay! So I've been focusing on the mind, body, spirit connection. So I think, you know, as Fiona and Nancy you're talking about, and Kate, your experiences, we had one similar, where a family member had a aneurysm, was in the hospital. The family wasn't allowed to be with them, even though they had all had COVID. And there was a period of time where she looked like she was going to recover, and then she didn't. She was in complete isolation, and she didn't make it through it. But I think that, you know, what stands out to me about all that is, in addition to the community, we need that community externally, but we also, I think what we're seeing right now and what we're seeing in the world with COVID is that we've lost in our systems, we've lost some humanity. We've lost the understanding that it is all connected, that our body heals when spiritually we are at our optimum, and when we have that community, and when we have, you know, all of those things working together, you know, which we talk about, that was raised mind, body, spirit. But I think when you really start looking at it, you're really seeing that we've lost that. And I think that that's some of what we're seeing right now. And it is shocking. I think the detachment that the hospital had for our family member, you know, they were more understandably concerned about the rules they've set in place. But there was really very little compassion for the family and for this person trying to recover. And there was no thought as to how to remedy it so that she could have all of that, you know, have her family's comfort, have their touch, have all those things so that she could reconnect and have a chance, you know. So I just think that's something we're all seeing, we're all feeling it. And I just feel like it's something, as time moves forward, that we should all feel comfortable about talking about, because as we talk about it, both in our personal experiences with these things happening to friends and family members, and recognizing and praying for it, that's part of what we're trying to shift here collectively, is this realization that as a society, we've, you know, throughout the entire world, we've lost that understanding that it is all connected, that you know, we do it here, we're connecting spiritually and emotionally with each other, but everyone has been so isolated from family members that don't live with them, that we're all seeing that, I think, firsthand. And it is painful to go through it. It's painful to see it. But it is something I think we're supposed to be shifting. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Just on that note, I mean, where did it start, Kate? The basis that people now have lost faith in trusting others to look after them or have a sense of security. So they've become anxious, and therefore they become their own little island and they only look after themselves. And therefore you end up with no sense of community. You know, you've got the nurse who's more worried about statistics, timings and targets rather than who's in her care. You know, just taking the medics as an example, you know, they're rushed off their feet. So, you know, it's not blaming them, but it's almost like the whole world has become so selfish. And what kick-started that? If originally we all had these wonderful communities, smaller areas, and it just sort of dissipated, it just vanished. I don't know. How did it start? And to get it back is incredibly hard.
Well, I realized a few years ago that actually it all started with the Industrial Revolution. Because with the Industrial Revolution, we started to lose connection with the earth. And as a result of that loss, we've lost connection with us, with each other, and with ourselves. And so, you know, if we look pre-industrial revolution, most people were farmers. They lived with the land. They communicated with the land. They were connected to their environment, and they needed to be connected to the environment for survival. And with the Industrial Revolution, our focus became completely different, and we isolated ourselves by focusing on, you know, what could be done what could be done that was easier or simpler or less time consuming, or and I mean, bizarrely enough, now we're more busy than we've ever been before. We've lost the ability to be connected to the flow of how nature unfolds. We're disconnected from seasons. You know, pre-industrial revolution, people went to bed when the sun set and woke up when the sun rose. And so in winter they slept for longer because obviously the nights were longer, and in summer they slept for less, but there was more to do in summer. There was less to do in winter. So everything was about nature's cycles and nature's rhythm. And as a result of that loss of connection, we then disconnected from ourselves, and we've disconnected from each other. And we've forgotten how much I think we've forgotten our purpose as human beings on this earth as a result of that. And I think at the same time, we've become overwhelmed by the external stimulus that is around us, that is not natural, and is more about routine and less about rhythm. And as a result of that, we lose that heart space. We disconnect from our hearts. We disconnect from that part of ourselves. And if we're disconnected from our hearts, how do we have empathy and compassion for someone else? We can't.
But I think when you're disconnected, and then you've obviously now brought in, or not you've brought in, the world has brought in technology, and you've got the internet and everything else. So people have started from a very insular starting point. Then they're trying to look for something within the internet, but then you've lost any sense of team spirit or having to rely on another person for anything, because you just Google it or whatever you want to do, or you get a YouTube and you work out how to do it. You know, it's going to just be so, I mean, I'm not trying to be down on it, but I just can't see, from people who've only known being an island and relying on technology to try and fulfill things, how you can get that collective back. I mean, we're all very lucky that we look beyond that, but there are so many people who are just stuck in it, and generations of it, who got no one to guide them out of it.
Okay, I think, Lorraine, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think we have to be talking about it, and we have to kind of start being the change makers. It starts with those of us that are awake enough to see it. And I feel like that's probably why we find each other and able to talk about it and share it, so that we can begin to share it with others, but understanding that not everybody wants to see it, or but I think a lot of it is about, as Kate was saying, Kate and I have been talking about the elements and our connection to it. We all are realizing that we're better when we've experienced nature. But I think one of the things I've been writing about is that when we're tuned into the elements, we can start to notice how it activates our senses, and then we can pull that into our body, and we can feel that, and into our heart. So the more we allow ourselves to feel it, the more we're in connection with our spirit and with the external world. We're able to pull it together. And so many people have detached from that, whether it's from trauma, or, all the things that have happened to us collectively over lives. we've turned off, so many people have turned off that connection. They don't want to feel the pain. And so obviously we all know we're having to purge it and feel it all, and it's not easy. But that at least seems to be part of the process, is that we're reconnecting kind of internally, externally, and it all comes into our heart. And then we're, it's a journey for all of us, but it feels like that's where we are. And those of us that see it and are doing it, then we start showing others how to do it and understand that not everyone's going to move at the pace that we are. They're going to have struggle with it a little bit more. So.
Thank
On
you,
the flip
Lorena.
side, here we are once a week, and you guys have all become, like, I feel, my closest friends, because I spend more time with you than I do with almost anybody else. And yet, you're in the other hemisphere or over in Europe or across the country or whatever. And in places that who would have thought a year ago I would have such good friends. So that's the flip side. Okay, I'm in IT, so I kind of had to say that. But that's the flip side of technology. It really is a miracle that it's not just, we've had the ability to look at webinars or whatever, but to interact as though you're all sitting in my kitchen with me, which I didn't clean my house. So I'm glad you're not in my kitchen right now. But, much as I wish, like Kate said, sometimes I go off this group and go, I wish we could be sitting in the same room. And I think someday we are going to be able to do that. And hopefully soon. But anyway, that's the flip side of technology, is that it has enabled us to put a group, an intimate group together who really share ideas and who come from amazingly different backgrounds and can still all really relate and really deeply care about what's happening in our lives. And, like, we'll all go off and we'll be thinking of Fiona's sister and, and Fiona, and we'll be thinking of Elizabeth, your friend who you told us about last week. And what a miracle that is, you guys, So there is community to be found in this new way of living.
I was going to say, I don't know whether you ever had a pen pal when you were younger, Nancy. Do you remember pen pals? It was like, the days of.
Who my pen pal was? My cousin.
Oh.
That I've been telling you about. I have her letters going back to 4th grade. And I think I told the question in the little small group last Saturday. My deepest regret right now is that I still have all of those letters going back, because we lived apart. She moved away when we were like in 2nd grade out to Boston. And we communicated, and for whatever I have, every letter she ever wrote me, and I always swore I was going to bring them back. They're at my sister's house because she got my mother's house, and read them. She would get such a kick out of them. And you know what? I don't know if she'll completely understand, but I'm going to send for those letters and read them to her when they finally let me in, because I can still remember. And like I said, I have every letter she ever sent me. So yeah, I do remember pen pals. I was a great writer in those days, because you couldn't make phone calls in those days. So writing, you just put a pen to a piece of paper and you held it out. So.
May I say a tiny thing to Lorraine? Because Lorraine, I don't know you at all. And this is going to sound so very, very trite. But in my life, I've worked in massive, massive institutions, whether it's the Ministry of Defense or the government. I spent 2 years in the Vatican trying to make sense of that, which was a complete head fuck. But what I would say is that all of us have to try and garner some inner strength, whether we're right or wrong, to believe that we can do the best in whatever situation we find ourselves, however difficult the obstacles are. because a lot of what we're talking about in this group, and I haven't been in this group for very long, but I love it so much, is that there is a disassociation between the individual and the institution, and we're all doing our best. So technology can help us. Some of the institutions we're riling against. Sometimes it's literally about being the best example of yourself when you go out of a day. I mean, I listen to you, Lorraine, and I think, oh my God, I'm not sure I'm doing well enough, but you just have to keep trying, because you never quite are sure what situation you're going to find yourself in. And I think that might be the message for the group, that this little team of individuals are going out and just forging a path of light and generosity and caring and love. And I don't have any crystals, so I'm probably a bit off beam, but you know, I'm trying.
That's beautiful, Natasha. I agree 100%. I think that the idea of us as individuals who come together in community and then go out on our paths, that's exactly the right focus. And it's about putting that as the priority, right? That's the priority. I think that this idea, Kate, that you're talking about with the Industrial Revolution has meant a shift away. In a way, it's what I put in the chat, that the idea of modernity and progress has become worshipped. Really, it has become worshipped over the individual, over community. It has been pasted over. There's a belief in the sanctity of progress, and that's the poison. And that's what I hear you saying, Natasha, that as individuals, we can empower ourselves to work within the institution to flip that. And it's so important. And using that technology, using our Zoom, doing what we're doing right now. And Nancy, I wonder if you know, there is perhaps a way to reach your cousin, if you could get those letters and read them to her over the phone. Sound is an amazing thing. She'll recognize that you have such a wonderful voice and such a unique way. I mean, just the character of your voice. Whether she understands perfectly everything that you're saying or not, she will recognize that. I think that could be super powerful for her and for you.
Thanks, Jen. They actually, in the other place, let her have FaceTime, but she's got a number of siblings, and to this point, I haven't wanted to take time away from them. They of course, remember, they all lost their mother a few weeks ago too. But yes, and I just believe soon, if I'm double vaccinated, that I might be able to convince the hospital to let me in for a visit. And I'll have those letters. I'm going to call my sister and have her dig them up and send them out to me. So thanks.
I mean, it might also be even if you just record you reading the letters, and send the recording that she can listen to. Yeah.
That's actually a very good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully I think we do have we have so much available in this world that can be used for good or for harm. And I think it's what our intention is with regards to it. And going back to something that you mentioned, Fiona, I think that there are an incredible amount of people that are searching. And I think that this past year has highlighted for so many people how lonely and isolated they feel, even in their families. So, the amount of people that I've spoken to and worked with this year with regards to things like, I have everything. I'm not struggling like, other people are struggling in this time. And yet I still feel lonely, or I still feel disconnected, or I still feel sad, or I still feel like nothing's enough, or these are feelings, deep feelings that people have that they struggle with. And I think that the search that so many people are on at the moment it means that they're reaching out to different in different areas and different forums for support and for guidance and for insight and clarity. And I must tell you how many people listen to our recordings of our weekly webinars is between 60 to 80 people every week who are not here, who they can't be with us here at the time. And I get emails every week from people saying, I'm so pleased so-and-so is feeling better, or that this has happened. I mean, they feel like they are part of this group, even though they're not here with us. So, I mean, even though we don't see their faces every week, some people pop in every now and then, but it's been, it's a special place we've created here. And I think I agree with you, Natasha. We're able to take this that we have created together and taken it and able to take it out into the world and into our lives. I know for myself, and I get many questions from people saying, how do they join? How do they sign up? And I'm just like, just log in. You don't need to sign up to anything. Just log in and join us. And it's amazing how people question that. They think that there's something that they've got to do or something they've got to give. And no, we're so used to something being taken from us before we can participate. And I think by creating this space, we all have a generosity of spirit that is ignited in us and is able to kind of roll out into our day-to-day lives.
Kate, I just want to share an experience I've had this weekend with an individual that at the end of the one day looked at me and said, I'm exhausted. And I said, well, really? She said, it's hard to go within and start answering the questions about who I am, because I've been afraid of being lonely all my life. And just going on to what Natasha was saying, as individuals, those are the kind of help that you can give to someone and say, you're never alone. Even if you are physically alone or far away, you are never alone. And I just didn't realize that people have no idea who they are or where they want to be, and they don't know how to go and find that either. So yeah, we have to go and be who we are and what we are, Natasha, and let that spread. Hopefully faster than the COVID virus did. We have to spread that one out.
It's not easy though, Megan, because if you're in that place, I mean, 10 years ago when I got divorced and I lost my job and everything all happened within a month. And from being someone who was very busy, stepmother, everything, suddenly I just woke up in the morning and I had nothing. You'd sit at the computer, you had no emails coming in, you were on your own, you didn't have any other responsibilities. That side of it I was thrilled by. But I left my job, unfortunately. I was unfairly dismissed and it was fairly traumatic. But it was the most extraordinary thing. It took me about 6 months to actually answer the question of who am I? Because I could say my name, which was actually my married name, so it wasn't really even me anyway. And then when people would ask you, what do you do? Nothing. Oh, so have you got children? No. Have you got a husband? No. And then it was something like, well, what could you associate with or be to in fact exist? It was the most bizarre thing, because it was just, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And I had to sort of almost sink to a complete, at the time, Kate, I was drinking too much. So I had 6 months of complete oblivion, which was marvelous, but in retrospect, not such a good plan. But it was a sort of thing when I came out of that, and then I set up my company, and then it gave me back my purpose of work. And then I could say I work for myself. But to just find that initial step when you're left reeling. It's incredibly hard to get that first step to start again. And then when someone says, who are you? You can say, well, I'm actually Fiona Diamond, full stop. You don't have to justify it with all this stuff behind you that made you feel part of the world or existing. I mean, it was the most extraordinary thing of where people just looked at me, you know, when I said no to every question, and they did not know where to follow it on with, because they in themselves associated their entire life with everything around them. And it was quite, what's the word, strength for me to be able to stand there and just say, well, I am who I am. Thank you. You know, I might read a book occasionally. That's about as exciting as it gets, you know, but that was it. But it's hard. It's hard when you're in that place to find somewhere and to believe.
And that's the point being here, that there are so many out there, and they may not be in a traumatic situation as you were. They're just in this routine life. And why am I not feeling fulfilled or whatever? And you say, well, who are you? And when you start looking at answering who you are, and then somebody looks at you and says, I'm exhausted because that is the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, because I've determined who I am with all that around me, and I've never bothered to go in and say, who is Fiona Diamond? I've never been there. She is this or that, but who is she really? And yeah, it was quite an eye-opener for me to see how exhausted a person was who'd been just spent an afternoon answering or trying to get to an answer on those kind of questions. It was very eye-opening.
I think that's a.
Hey, Megan, sorry, Jennifer.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Natasha.
No, I was going to say, Megan, that fear of loneliness is so very real. You can be in a meeting with 30 men and still feel completely alone and redundant and like you can't make a difference in the world. But what's interesting about the UK, and I have no idea how many of you are in the UK at all, but lockdown went, this is a joke, kids. So there was an article in the Times this week that there is a very small percentage of people who have birthdays between the 15th and the 24th of March. And they are the only small percentage in the UK who will have had 2 birthdays in solitary confinement and isolation. And so the argument is you can knock 2 years off your age this year. I'm one of those, right? I'm about to have my 2nd birthday in lockdown. And loneliness is weird. I've spent the whole weekend on my own. I had my first jab on Friday and I felt terrible all of yesterday. Fevers, sweats, awful. You don't speak to a soul. You guys are the first people I've spoken to all weekend. So there's loneliness and there's loneliness. And there shouldn't be a fear, because actually you need to ground. When we do these amazing meditations with Kate, you need to ground yourself in that heart strength to know that that loneliness that you fear, Megan, really is not a fear at all.
Oh, that's so well said, Natasha. That kind of loneliness, that sense of that fear of understanding yourself, I think, Megan, that you're talking about, that you saw in this client, that's pervasive, isn't it? I mean, it's all around. It's interesting, and you know, forgive me if I've mentioned this in this group before, but I think that you can, as almost a litmus of how a community regards itself and how much people are isolated and how much of a sense of togetherness or not exists in a community, can be those questions that people ask you. Like Fiona was saying, she was asked all of these really specific questions, right? What do you do? Do you have a spouse? Do you have, there are societies, there are communities in this world that do it in a completely different and such a lovely way, by simply asking, when they meet someone, tell me about yourself. And that's just such a relief, you know? And I think that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing in this community. But I mean, there really are literally whole communities that the first time I encountered this was when I was in Brazil to teach for a summer. And, you know, I'm sure that society has its own issues, but that's one they've got right. They'll have people everywhere there that you meet. Same thing in Hawaii. You people that you meet will say to you upon meeting you for the first time, tell me about yourself. How lovely.
I do like that. And one of the things I find so interesting about some people who work with me one-on-one is they always feel like they need to have clarity or a direction or something. They need to know, you know, what they're doing or where they're going and how they're going to do it. I always think, well, why? None of us really know what we're doing, do we? I mean, I wake up every day and I have no clue. I just do what is placed in front of me every moment, and I think the best we can get to is, and I mean, I love that book, The 4 Agreements. You know, do your best, which is one of them. Always do your best, and your best in every moment is going to be different. It's not always going to be the same. And I think if we can admit that, you know, none of us really know what the hell we're doing, we're winging it every step. If we knew what we're doing, I don't know, how do we know what we're doing in the next moment? We haven't traveled to the future and come back. So we really don't know what we're doing in every moment. And actually that we can decide or choose to walk this journey with each other, and to recognize that we actually don't need to do it alone. And that for me has been something that has driven me in many ways to do a lot of the things that I've done and the work that I've done, is because I just feel so many people feel like they're alone. I mean, I as a child, I felt like I was the only person like me in the whole world. Didn't think that there was anyone else around that was like me. And I realized as an adult that, you know, that there were obviously people that were like me too. And I kind of took it on myself that I didn't want children to grow up feeling that way. You know, that they weren't connected to anything, that they weren't recognized, that they weren't seen. And I think that, you know, all of us, as even as adults, it's important that we are recognized, that we are seen, and not for what we do, just for who we are as a human being.
On that note, I remember a very good girlfriend of mine who's Irish, and I don't know if he's aware of the Irish Catholic Protestant situation. You know, the first question someone would ask them would be, so where do you go to school? Because then immediately they could tell if they were Catholic or Protestant without actually having to ask. And then they were either completely sidestepped because, you know, they wouldn't be allowed in the house. You know, the fact that those things are so prevalent and so important to everybody. And there's too much judgment. I mean, luckily we're all enlightened to judgment now, but, you know, people out there who just literally wouldn't even bother to get to know someone purely based on their religion is just shocking, and still exists, you know.
My father was English, 100% cook. My mother was Irish Catholic, and my grandparents threatened not to go to the wedding if he was going to marry her. And in those days, they couldn't be married in the church. They were married in the rectory because she was not marrying a Catholic. So yeah, for sure. And just one other thing, what Kate was talking about, when I was 22, my first spiritual teacher, who I've told you guys about before, he was such a wonderful man. I said to him at 22, when will I know what I'm going to be when I grow up, Dick? And he looked at me and he said, you're never really going to know what you want to be when you grow up. And I went, well, that wasn't the answer I was looking for. And he just laughed and he said, you're just going to walk along the path and you're going to keep being different things as life goes on. And And in my case, is very true because I've had so many different careers, and that I just go from one thing to the other. I've taught, I've run hotels, I've been a paralegal, I started IT at 57. Who does that? Whatever. But I think of him so often because I realize just exactly what you said, Kate. You just keep getting up. And he said, you just get up in the morning and you just do the next thing that's in front of you. And that's how it's going to be the rest of your life. Now, at 22, I didn't take that well because it wasn't the answer. I was looking for something a little more concrete than that. But at 66, I look back and smile at that answer and go, how true that was.
Yeah, I must say I have noticed people have different reactions when I say I have no idea what I'm doing. Some people panic a little.
I think it's refreshingly honest.
Yeah, well, I just hope I'm not going to end up making a total fool of myself. It's generally what goes through my head. Okay.
Well, we would love you anyway, Kate.
Oh, thanks, Nancy. I know I'm safe to make a fool of myself. Yeah, I think I do it on a regular basis, so it's okay.
What about the other 80 people who are going to watch this later, Kate? This is what's worrying me now.
They love it. They feel like they're here with us. Okay.
Well, energetically they are.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jennifer, you did the meditation last week, the recording. Yeah.
Oh my God. You all were right there in the space with me. I mean, I had my earbuds on. It was hours and hours later. And yeah, I was just so thankful to have you all right there. It was amazing.
Well, we were thankful to receive it. So.
Okay, so maybe we should get into doing some meditating and see where we are taken today.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say goodbye. I have to leave at this time today because my family's waiting for me for supper. I'm in my brother's house today. So sorry, because it's 7 p.m., but I will definitely do the recording of the meditation. So, and thank you so much for this wonderful webinar, all of you. So lots and lots of love and prayers and everything to you, Nan.
Thanks, Anita.
Anita, have a good week.
Thank you. Okay, so for those of us that are left, let's get into a comfy space. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes and just draw your awareness into your breath, or to your breath. And allow yourself to just settle into this moment and into this space. Becoming aware of your body. Becoming aware of your breath, the inhale and the exhale. And just allowing your body to relax and bringing your mind into a state of peace and calm. And allow yourself to let go of any worries, any concerns. Just be in this moment. And allow yourself to move your awareness to any areas in your body where you're feeling pain or discomfort. Allow yourself to breathe into that space. And just keep breathing into that space, into those spaces where the discomfort and the pain is being held. And allow the breath to bring in space. And if you can, feel into that space. And allow yourself to become aware of any feelings or emotions that may be trapped in that space. Allow those feelings and emotions to rise, to surface. And with your breath, letting them go. And in your mind's eye now, see yourself standing on the shore of a beautiful lake. And the water is still. And it gently washes onto the shore. You just look around and notice the trees and the vegetation that surrounds this lake. And allow yourself to just breathe in the peace and the calmness and the serenity of this space. And observe the gentle flow of the water. And when you're ready, you step into the water. Moving deeper and deeper until you are able to completely submerge yourself in the stillness and the calmness of this beautiful lake. And you allow yourself to just float, looking up at the sky, watching the clouds as they move across the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. And you just allow yourself to be held in this space, in this water. You allow yourself to feel weightless. And feel yourself becoming one with the water. Feeling its gentle flow moving throughout your body and being until you become the lake. The stillness and the depths, the movement and the flow. You become one with its rhythm. And you surrender into that. And you feel your awareness expanding until you become one with nature. You begin to breathe with the plants and the trees. And you feel your connection to all of life. You feel the lightness and the joy in that connection. You recognize how it supports you and nurtures you and cares for you. You feel the connection that you have to everyone in this group. And allow yourself to feel that support. And feel your awareness now dropping back into your physical form, but maintaining the connection that you have forged in this meditation. And just taking a few deep breaths. Breathe yourself back into this space and into this time. And just take a moment to hold a space of healing and light for those who are in need, the ones we know. Mary, Nancy's cousin, Penelope, Fiona's sister. For anyone else that we're not aware of at this time. Just holding a space of light and healing. And asking that we are all given the strength and the courage that we need to move through these times. Just taking a few deep breaths, bring your awareness back into your body. Move your fingers and your toes. You can open your eyes when you're ready. Oh, thank you, everyone. That was another good one I didn't want to come out of. I think these meditations just get stronger and stronger every week.
Kate, can I just say, and to everybody, I've cried more during this session than any other put together. So thank you for that, because there's obviously something going on. And I've just connected with my mermaid self. And I didn't even know I had a mermaid self. I've never done it before. I've never been drawn to the realm. So I'm off now to swim and do what mermaids do. I've got no idea. So I just wanted to say thank you, because that's a totally new experience for me. Thank you so much. I'm a mermaid. Who knew?
Well, maybe the swimming and the mermaid is the part of the sciatica that's,
Maybe. And so I'm going to talk to her, and I mean, wow.
And aren't the mermaids connected to the dolphin realm as well?
I think so. I don't know. Never touched it before. I'm 5 planets in Taurus. I'm an Earth girl. So now I need to really, my goodness.
Find a good rock to sit on, then at least you're grounded. You need a hairbrush.
It's a whole new look. I had no idea. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear of your mermaid adventures.
Me too.
That's brilliant.
Love to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. And Sunday seems far away, but hopefully the week will go a little bit faster, and we will see you all next week.
If I can just tell you that my little sister Alice
at the end of last week, I think before we talked about her, she came out of a comatose state and she's now communicating and she's much more peaceful and much more comfortable and much happier in the little 96-year-old life.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know.
Thank you for being there for her.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nancy. I hope your back gets better soon. Look after yourself. That pain is terrible.
Me too. But thanks, as always. Tell Humphrey thanks for his communication with us today.
I'd just gone into this really beautiful expanded space and then he started and I thought, oh, thank you. I must have started moving past him.
No, he always adds something to the meditation. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone. Fiona.
Bye, everyone. Sending love to you all. Have a good week. Thank you.